I promise I'm here. Hey, everybody. I have a few tabs open. I have a little surprise for our guest, Julie's Orchids. She is here tonight with us because, well, we've got a little party going on. Hey, Brea. Hey. Now, Julie is with us, but we already had a little chit chat before. I just don't see her around, so I'm going to add her just to make sure that she knows that we're live now, so she doesn't come in. Hey! Okay, Julie, just one more intro, and this one's for you and your kiddos. You ready? Woohoo! It worked. I think it worked. I'm not entirely sure.
It was fantastic.
I'm so glad that worked out. I hope everybody had sound because I had 3 screens going at once. Happy birthday to you and your little babies. Congratulations, Orchid Mama. And here we have the first candidate. And thank you, AMC, for being here. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Fernanda.
I don't know why I always get such shaky fingers when I'm trying to do something. Anyway, Julie, success, failures, 1 year with your babies. First timer deflasking. You go ahead. Let us know what's going on.
So I started deflasking out of necessity, well before probably I should have by experience. As we've had in your prior podcast where you hosted me, difficulties getting plants into Western Australia, but not so much difficulties getting flasks. So for some of the plants that I wanted, the only way to get them was to unflask them. So I started off December of last year with 2 flasks. One was Phal Bellina, and the other one was Phal philippinensis. Now I picked the genus Phal because supposedly they're the easier ones to deal with from flask.
Okay.
And I can say that of the 2, the Bellinas all died. That was the first one. I was expecting a high death rate, but every one of that flask died. Phal philippinensis. There were 24 plants in that flask, and I have 10 that have made it to grown-up pots, pumice, and they're currently shooting out new roots, new leaves. We've got
they look lovely. They
3 nice leaves on this one. And then the next month I received Phal violacea alba, Phal stuartina tipo, and my first non-Phal Acioclades maculata. I had similar death rates to philippinensis in that the alba and the stuartina came with 25 plants, and 11 of those survived. Here is our stuartina.
Look at that.
And let's find my alba. And here's the violacea alba.
Wow. Oh my goodness, that looks amazing after a year.
Yeah, and The Acioclades maculata being terrestrials, those took me on a slightly different learning curve. That flask came with 70 plants, of which I'd say 10 or so were already dead in the flask. I have
That was
20 of them.
smashed, wasn't it? Wasn't that the shipment where it was kind of smashed up?
That was the shipment, but the Epictobenaras, Wild White Fairies, were the ones that was broken.
Okay.
I've got 2 of those left.
Wow.
But the Acioclades are putting out their second and third new growth since being deflasked. And these ones here, 20 of them survived. And I'm getting ready to put these up for sale through my local
Wow.
Orchid Society. Yeah.
I am so impressed. And there's still more. I can see where your eyes are going.
Yeah. So those were the first 6 flasks that I got, and those are the ones that I'm following on my channel. Sum total over the year, I have received 12 flasks, including the flask of Bellinas that died. And I'm having a similar sort of survival rate of getting, 25 plants or so in the flask, and of those having 11 or 12 survive. So for me, being as new as I am, I'm pretty happy with those numbers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you started them out with, you started them out in an organic media and then switched them up, or how did you start this out?
And okay, so I started off with
a party pooper here. We're celebrating every success, but what happened? Do you believe what happened with the ones that didn't make it?
Okay, that was learning curve and figuring out the weird changes in the humidity levels that happen here in Perth. Most people think of fall, spring, winter, summer. The Aboriginals, or the First Nations people in the Perth area, actually say that there are 6 distinct seasons here in Perth, and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce their correct First Nations names, but I would agree with the assessment of the First Nations people that whereas we do have, summer, fall, spring, and winter, there's those little times between the changeovers of the seasons that's a little bit more drastic than just fall or spring. And that's when the deaths happen, and it happened quickly, because those times we're going from either very, very high humidity levels from summer to the winter, no humidity levels, and the daily fluctuations and spikes, particularly through the nighttime when the temperatures drop. Everything just got cold, wet, and rotted. Now, at the time, I had them planted in seedling bark and spag moss, and the Bellinas. It took 2 days and they were gone. It just seemed it was that quick. So I went in there quickly and pulled out all of the spag moss from all of the remaining ones, and then just filled in around with the seedling bark. And then problem number 2 happened, and problem number 2 was related to my water. My water parts per million here from the tap is 485. And at the time I was just using a Brita water filter pitcher, which was bringing my parts per million down to 300. Couple that with the exceedingly dry climate in the summer, the dry top layer, I had horrible salt buildup, and what roots were coming out were dying. So change was picking off the little top layers of the bark and putting on new top layers of the bark. Got the RO system, that really helped a bit, but still, whenever I was fertilizing, again, we're having the problem of such quick drying of the top layer. When spring came and I noticed new roots were coming out, I put them into pumice, and they've gone nuts.
Yay!
Yeah. And I have them in differing size of pumice depending on how big their roots are. The terrestrial orchid, the Acioclades, I have them in 0 to 7 millimeter size pumice to more closely resemble what they might grow in. I'm finding that every plant that I placed into pumice in my environment, they're loving it. I've got some of my plants that have only been out of flask for a few months. Not sure, I'm not going to pull out the right one that I've got. Now that I put them into pumice, I've got roots. This has only been deflasked in May.
Oh,
We got roots coming out of the bottom. This has only happened since I put it into here.
that's
Um,
great. So you don't
so
think there's a connotation with it being the grow season? You do believe the media has something to do with it and the higher humidity retention it can provide, or how do you?
I think it's a combination therein of everything.
Right.
Yeah, I think I found the right media for growing in my environment with the changes, because the pumice doesn't seem to keep that salty buildup, and it rinses off much easier than the bark. I put a decorative top layer of just plain river pebbles that are not porous.
Can we see
on the
that
top.
again? Everybody loves a good root tip. Sorry. Look
So
at
I just
that.
got plain
Right.
non-porous
Right.
decorative rock on the top, and that helps to keep that top layer from drying out a bit. The water runs off those really quickly. It dries really quickly, too fast for, I'm thinking, salt buildup to happen. Haven't had any problems with salt buildup on them. The bigger plants with the bigger roots that are babies are now getting fertilized at big boy plant ratios. The other ones are
Wow.
getting much lower parts per million. But then
Wow,
again,
that's brave. I
summer's
don't do
coming.
that. Maybe that's my problem. I don't do that. I am so conservative with fertilizer. Even during the growth season, forget the seeds,
Mm.
forget where I'm at. Now I have a different circumstance. I have to be very careful. But even during the growth season, I'm super conservative. Maybe that's my problem.
I was too, but then now summer's coming and we haven't gone through a full year in pumice. And our triple La Nina event has delayed summer quite a bit. Normally we would be having 35 to 40 degrees Celsius days pretty consistently now, but we've only had 2 days where we've hit like 35, 37.
Hmm.
But normally by Christmas time, it's, you drive down to the beach, you have your barbecue gloves on because the steering wheel's too hot.
Yeah, might as well forget packing them up. We just use them
Yeah.
and then use them later.
And this year it's been cold. It's been cold, and we've had rain quite a bit later in the year than we should have. So I'm interested to see. Maybe it's all part and parcel, and next year when things return to normal, I'll be, thinking, why did I switch to pumice? But
Yeah.
for right now, everything is just loving it.
Okay, so when you talk about the heat, your babies are living in a place where they do get that exposure to that heat, or are they a
No,
little bit more controlled?
because I grow indoors, and with the heat here, we had the bad fortune of last Christmas, the aircon conking out.
Right. Oh, I
Um,
remember that. Yes.
yeah, and the temperatures in my bedroom were 52 C. So you need air conditioning here. So I don't like super cold, but when it's 42 outside, I'll have the temperature to 30 in the house, because you don't want to walk into a refrigerator. And likewise, when you open the door, you don't want to walk outside and feel like you're walking into an oven that's been baking a cake for an hour
Right.
and a half. So you find that moderation where it's not too drastic of an extreme. So yeah, that's hot.
Very. That is hotter
Yeah.
than Vegas. I mean, maybe I sat at the Bellagio with my shorts on the balustrade and it was that hot because my buns were cooking, but that was
Mm,
hotter than Vegas when I was in Vegas. That is
yeah.
insane.
Well,
That was in your bedroom.
that was the temperature in the bedroom.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how people lived here before air conditioning, but they did. Um,
And they still
maybe
do.
that.
To my
Yeah.
understanding, there are still places where the hottest place on earth. And there's one guy managing the post office there because everybody seemed to have left.
Yeah. Sorry. What time is it here? 4:45.
And that is something I should have mentioned right out of the gate. Julie's Orchids is here tonight from Australia, and she took it upon herself to be up at o'clock to be with us so that the European time zone can accommodate her, as opposed to on a Saturday night when Europeans are usually sleeping. So yeah, thank you so much for doing that. It is crazy o'clock for you in the morning. Wow. Thank you.
So I'm still working the frogs out of the throat. I apologize.
Absolutely understandable. Absolutely. So tell me, what do you think? And again, no party pooper here, but because I have deflasked some babies right at the beginning in 2018, and I was only using Ceramus, and I was doing the high humidity thing, etc. And that entire flask failed. Meanwhile, I didn't have 25. I had about maybe 7 in that flask. I don't know how they can do that precisely, but what happened? I can't tell you what went wrong with mine. Heat mats, high humidity. I can't tell you what went wrong with mine. So I haven't tried it again because I wouldn't be able to know where to troubleshoot.
Okay, so I've been chatting with a couple of the gals in my local orchid society that are also growing from flask. One of them is Lynn Brooks at Lynn Brooks Orchids.
Mm-hmm.
And Lynn made the comment to me because she's got this really fancy setup that one of the local guys made her, hothouse with controlled humidity and, like a terrarium on wheels sort of thing. It's fantastic setup. And she grows.
I saw that. It was awesome.
And she says, mine all are dying. She says, what are you doing?
Wow.
And the only thing that we could really guess the difference is because we live in the same area. She's not that far from me to have that big of a change in climate, because Western Australia is huge state. So the only thing we could think of is that I was keeping mine at much lower humidity levels. She had hers at 85%.
Mm-hmm.
Mine run between 50, 55. In the wintertime, they get to 65. I actually gave them the full wet dry cycle. When they were little in the small little pots, they would get watered on Saturday and Wednesdays.
You do. So so you did give your seedlings out of the flask a wet dry cycle. Interesting.
Yeah.
That is, for me, interesting.
And I'm still doing that. So I've got some that, I just came back from Indonesia a few months ago, and those came out of the flask, went right into, I think it was pumice at the time. And yeah, they get the same wet dry cycle.
Interesting. Maybe that is where Lynn and I are going wrong. I've seen others do the same. I thought it was maybe the inorganic media I was using, but I refused to switch up to anything organic, because here's the thing. There's two things. If I'm thinking about troubleshooting, when seedlings get shipped, they get jostled around. You know that very well. Even flasks break. And so when they, on the instruction sheet, they always say that if the agar has been disturbed and is all over the place, and the seedlings have, been disrupted with the way they should be, then it is advisable to deflask immediately, not wait. Otherwise, if the little flask, I had them in little like Tupperwares, like from a deli. That's how mine came. But and then they say as well, if you don't have that disturbance in the flask after shipping, to leave them as they are, unless they're growing mold. So there's two things. If they're molding and the flask is intact and has not looked disturbed, leave them. Leave them unless they're growing mold. Until then, the leaves actually touch, or get too big, it's too crowded in there. So I didn't have the mold. I had the agar was completely disrupted, and I took them out. I put them in high humidity, and then they started to very quickly rot. So I don't know if I didn't clean them, wash them off properly, but I think high humidity. Yes.
So what I did with the first set of flasks is I got them, opened them immediately. And then I realized maybe I shouldn't have done that because they were actually in really good nick. The next set of flasks came in with broken flask, and the other one had visible signs of rot on the inside. Those were the Acyclades. And then I had one more, the Stuartinas, and those actually were in good nick. So those opened. I opened the Erlenmeyer flask, just popped the top, and I let those sit to get used to the ambient humidity in their flask for 2-3 days.
Well,
And
that's
what I
not
really
long
tried.
either.
No, but yeah, and mostly for that is because my time, I work full time, and so the bulk majority of the time that I have to do complicated stuff like that is on the weekends. So the hope is they come in on a Monday, I can open the box on a Monday, assess what's there, and if need be, do a quick, take care of them quickly or let them air out through the rest of the week, depending on when mail comes. But yeah, I do find that maybe they have a little bit more success in the full-on acclimatization. Sorry, if you can just pop the top and let it sit there
Yeah.
in its growing space where it's going to grow under the lights and the whole 9 yards. Again, you have to sort of watch that because in my climate, depending on what time of year it is, if it's really hot and dry, that agar molds quickly once you open it.
Yes. Yes.
So there again, you've got sort of 6 one, half dozen of the other, and you have to really hover over them. And yeah, I do find it's been my experience that if you follow the keep the high humidity, keep it high, 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 in my climate here, they just rot. Now, I don't use heat mats, but I do have temperature control with aircon and heat. Because we do, particularly in the summertime, have quite drastic swings from daytime maximums and nighttime minimums, being as close to the desert as we are. But the plants, after a year, they seem to ride it out pretty good.
Yeah.
And I can say that the seedling plants, maybe because they're babies, I'll just say this, with the flask, you're going to get plants that look very obviously strong and energetic and maybe genetically better mix of DNA in there. And you'll have some that are smaller in size. You'll have some that are protocorms. I'm to the point now that when I'm deflasking, I'm going for those flask babies that look strong and vigorous. And those are the ones I'm really investing in, giving them their own pots. The other ones that are sort of midway size between will go into a compot. And if there's any protocorms or anything like that, I don't bother trying those anymore.
Right.
Yeah, they just die, and that's heartbreaking. So I guess just like with all litter mates or siblings or mass, sort of you'll notice that there are some, just stronger contenders from the go. And, those are these.
Yeah. But that's also why an orchid has millions of seeds in a seed pod. It's, even out in nature, it's not going to happen that every single seed is going to find its right little place to be able to then develop, Even the ones that are grown in the labs, I am sure that even Fred Clark Yara, Fred Clark Yara, I'm using the genus Fred Clark out there in California, he throws some away as well, as in they're not suitable for bringing on to sell because we want to sell strong plants. I mean, I know I know where you're coming from when it sounds, oh, that's so sad, but you got to be realistic as well. So do you think, go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that completely. Yeah. Yeah.
No, but so do you think your Bellinas didn't make it that maybe if you were to try again, you might give them more humidity, or what if you think back to the troubleshooting on that part?
Okay. I'm going to say with the Bellinas, I could have been a bit more clean in my deflasking.
Okay.
And I'm speaking from a healthcare person's perspective of aseptic technique. I'm not going full on sterile, but I could have been more clean, a bit more
Right.
aseptic. I've since gone to the point now when I am deflasking, I do take a minute to use aseptic technique. Even though my hands are bare, I clean them with basically the same cleaning solution I would use at work if I was going to do or assist with an injection of something like that. You can buy those same cleaning supplies. They kill a broad range of things, and I will rinse out whatever bowls that I'm using um, with that and be quite a bit more aseptic as opposed
Right.
to just grabbing stuff out of the cupboard like I did. And
Yeah.
here's some water to rinse it off, and we'll put a little bit of
It'll be fine.
yeah, hydrogen peroxide. So I did sort of increase that. Now, I can't say that I went necessarily all, sticking in a box and have a hood sort of thing. I did do it right here on my kitchen table. I did use a bit of newspaper, but as far as the little bowls and the things that I touched, I tried to keep that as aseptically clean as possible. And I did microwave my, um, you can think it's crazy. I did microwave the paper towels that I used.
Yeah, no, but whatever. I mean, all those things add up. If it's not one, maybe it's a culmination of many things, and it all adds up. It's just a question of what was it? Because, like I said, for me, my little ones, they just started to rot, and I felt as though I had done everything right. And then I thought maybe they were far too little to even be deflossed, so they were not going to make it. But I won't know that unless I find exactly the same thing again and try it again, which I'm not going to, because it's just not, well, now it's impossible anyway. But even
Yeah.
back then, the temptation was there to just reorder. But then I thought, no, if you're not, wait for the ones that you do have, see how they now develop, but they weren't deflasked. They came as puny little. Let me show you if I can find it without stuttering. Go ahead and talk. If you've already got something that you want to, I don't want to interrupt what you're saying. You are the guest.
Oh, those are little ones.
Yeah, they didn't make it.
Yeah. Those I would say, those would be the ones that I would have put into a compote like that there. Now, the ones that with that particular, I've not done a Cattleya flask, but that size there, I would say if you could give them maybe half that much bigger would be what I would consider a vigorous seedling, one that would make it. This size I would have high hopes for at this stage of my growing. Now, at the beginning, I'd have thought, yeah, well, those are going to be dead.
Right.
Right now, I'm getting much better luck with ones at this size, but anything smaller than that, or with still the protocorm attached to it, they just don't make it.
Right.
In my, maybe if you have, a right proper plant propagation lab, or you're much
Now,
better with that than I am in your growing. Now, I've even tried to sell or offer up some of my seedlings, and I've been told by my local orchid societies that not yet. They're too difficult for our growers to grow. And I'm thinking, but you guys, most of you people have been growing for 20 years, and I've been growing for 3, 2. Do you want some? Because I wanted to get more flasks, but I was told by the presidents of my different societies that I need to grow them on a bit longer because they're just too difficult. So then I felt strange.
Well, you've got the touch, girl. Wouldn't you say?
Knock on wood, maybe. I don't know. I found the little niche that's working for me, and
Yeah.
They they do require a little bit more doting. All children do. These ones, they grow in my bedroom so that I can get up and pretty well. That's the first thing I look at. Get up, there's the wall with the
As you
orchids.
do with a baby.
Yeah,
You have the cot right there.
yeah. And then anytime I'm in the room, you know, I just kind of give everything a glance over, but I really pay attention to the babies. And I'll say most people, I think, in my experience, what I've noticed is it's not necessarily the outside ambient humidity that gets them; it's the in the pot humidity. Those little roots coming from that agar, even though the agar seems like a really wet medium and they should be able to just handle all that wet, wet, wet. Um, it's the root rot that killed the Bellinas. It
Okay.
wasn't leaf drying up. The leaves stayed fine until all of a sudden the roots just collapsed underneath them.
Hmm.
Uh, and it just seemed that, you know, the one or two little pieces of loose spag moss that I had in there just kept it way, way too wet. Um, and getting rid of
Interesting.
that made the difference. Yeah.
Because so to my what I'm hearing now, what my brain is interpreting is that the humidity should be around the leaves, not so much in the pot. Especially when
I'd
I
say
look
if
at
you
my
can
little pot
maintain,
here, because that pot was covered up, like, you know, when you if you get a frappuccino with whipped cream at Starbucks, you have
yep,
that cap on top.
yep,
And for the sake of the picture, I took the picture and took the cap off. But normally that cap was on, and of course the top of the hole there, I cut out the cross parts where the straw goes.
yeah,
So what I'm trying to now understand is, yes, humidity so they don't lose it through their leaves, but not as much, not to perpetuate what's happening in the pot.
mm,
Does that make sense? Would that be
yeah,
another way of putting it?
yeah, yeah. And I, you know, I
Because,
think if you can maintain 55% humidity consistently in your grow space, they should do just fine.
huh,
Just watch that you don't keep the roots too wet because
yeah, yeah,
they
yeah,
go down
yeah.
quick. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. You see,
Mhm.
agar may be wet, but it's not really. All it is just sugar around the roots. It's not like if it was wet, it would be more runny, but it's a gel.
Mm.
The roots actually only really get wet when we first take the seedlings out and then start to wash the agar off. I don't know if that is something that resonates with you when you did your deflasking. The
Mhm.
roots looked green and were greening up as you washed the agar off, as opposed to what you saw in the flask was white velamen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. This is now starting to make sense, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation. I hope that this helps anybody that is watching this, because my interpretation was as automatic as saying it has got to be high humidity and that's it. I did not differentiate, excuse me, the humidity levels between not losing perspiration through the leaves because the leaves were in a high humidity environment, the roots themselves, not so much. And to put them all into this one humidity chamber, I would say that was my mistake. And based on what you're talking about with your Bellinas, whereas the other ones are doing fine, bar some losses, which we all would anticipate anyway. There's always a percentage.
Yeah.
I am understanding this a lot more. Yeah, the two are completely separate. It's not high humidity. It is high humidity, but not around the roots. Huh.
Because I can tell you that these babies here lived through my air conditioning conking out and 52 degrees in the bedroom.
That is insane.
And that's 52 Fahrenheit. And you had pointed out that's 125 degrees Fahrenheit.
Right.
Yeah, they had airflow. They lived through that. Now, some of my adult phragmipedians, yeah, my adult frag Fritz Schomburg just, yeah, dead. Any of the Miltoniopsis I had, dead. Babies,
Alive and kicking.
yeah, they took it, you know. Now they weren't
So,
necessarily happy, but once I got some water into them, because by that time, you know, we'd been gone for 4 days.
wow, my
Aircon conked
goodness.
out, middle of a heat wave. I come back. Yeah, they were fine. And yeah, I was crying. Oh my God, everything is going to be dead. It's 52 in the bedroom. You walk in the bedroom and you think you could, fry an egg on your
Yeah, on
on
your
your bedside
mattress.
table because it's yeah. Um,
Wow.
so
Okay, so a little bit of nugget of information here. Humidity might be important in a seedling around the leaves, but separate the leaves from what should be happening in the pot. Check and see how the velamen looks while it is in the agar, because it is going to be white. More often than not, it is white. And then we put them into humidity plus humidity, and then we seal them off in a protected chamber, including some airflow, granted, but that is far too much from what I'm understanding now. And I'm looking at my little pot and I'm saying, I'm so sorry. I feel so bad. I feel so bad because let me just, okay, so wait, hang on a second before we move on. Your Phragmipedium is no longer with us?
no, Phragmipedium Fritz Schomburg 1.0 is gone. I have replaced him with 2.0.
Okay,
Yeah.
then that's the one in bloom right now. Help me.
No,
Please
that's my
don't.
Frag.
Oh,
No, that's Frag Thurcii.
oh, I'm so sorry. I am so sorry. I'm getting it. I'm getting
Let me see if I
completely.
can get him. Oh no, can you see?
Somewhat. There it is. Yes, now.
Yeah.
Now, yeah. Oh, look at that.
Yeah, so we've got another bud coming here and another flower spike, but this one is a seedling that I bought as a seedling plant.
And it's your first time to bring it to bloom.
Yeah, this is its first blooming for the plant. And so I'm pretty pleased that it's put out 2 spikes. And this one's got, oh wow, there's another bud coming. Ah, that's pleasant. One in
Wow.
flower, 1 bud and 1 bud forming. So
Hang on a second. Hang on a second. Let me get that horrible. Well, it's not horrible. Shame. Let me just move that away. There we can see it a little bit better. You're much bigger now. Oh, look at that. Congratulations.
So I'm happy with that one.
And that looks like a heavy pot, or is that misleading?
No, it's a bit heavy.
Okay.
That one has a mix of the 0 to 7 millimeter up to 20 in layers because the Phragmipediums like it a bit more moist.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah.
And no ants in the pot.
No, no creepy bugs in the pot. And I think mostly it's the top dressing of the Riverstone that really puts the heft in that pot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I want to show you another one, another little thing that I have, maybe 2. Let me just double check. Because the pictures I'm showing of the seedlings, they are from 2018. So let me just make sure I get this right, just to tell you that I still have these. You know, we're having a party. We're not going to be 2 party poopers. Let me go here and show you this. This is the Cattleya moon bells, and you know, I bought all these little seedlings from the one company, Cattleya Blue from Germany, and now this is how one of them came out. Still small and with a good new growth coming. And of course, into Ceramus blah seedling cup, which is my standard thing for seedlings. And it's still alive and it's still doing well. I don't know how big it should get before it's going to bloom, but I am super conservative with what I actually give this seedling. And judging by the blooms, well, at least the parents, those blooms on the tag, they look very, very C.G. Roebling purpurata-like. You can see that the parents are bluebells and blue. Who cares? I don't even believe that is entirely true, but I wanted blue, as you can tell. But that little guy, now, let me see if I can find him. Let me show you what he looks like now. If you have a moment,
Yeah.
let's do this again. There we go. And
Oh,
that
I think you
is
should.
4 years later, and he's been uppotted since that picture was taken, or she.
I think you've done good then.
I think it is pretty cool. But you see, that is a seedling that has not been deflasked. It came to me and I just took it out of whatever media it was in. I don't even remember. And I just put it into putting, Ceramus around it. And it's been repotted now for the third time since 2018. So, but I still think it's pretty small considering by the color, by the texture and the size of the blooms on the tags. I don't even think that is, we're not there yet by a long shot, But
Yeah,
I
I
am
agree
putting
with
it
Robert.
into, huh?
I agree with Robert. I think it looks like it should be blooming soon, I would think, from the size of it.
Yeah, maybe in 2025 because of the setbacks through the winters that I have to deal with,
Yeah,
Maybe that's
that could
slowing it
be.
down. But I have it in the brightest part of the grow space, right up against the glass to
Hmm.
the west side. If it's sunny, it is in full sun. At least it's not, it's going to heat up maybe, I don't know, to 20 degrees Celsius, which is what, 68? Let me make that sure I get that right.
Yeah, I
68,
think so.
huh? Oh,
I
Nina.
think so.
68 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, so I make sure it gets really hot, but we have now had, 4 days of overcast and pouring rain. This thing hasn't seen diddly squat, so that's, but to be honest, the leaves aren't that big. That pot is, let me go back to my measurement converter here. That pot at the time, length, let's go to, sorry guys, but I'm doing this on the fly. Don't want to waste your time. That pot there is 3 inches across, 8 centimeters. It is now in a 5.9 inch pot. So,
Okay.
the proportions are important as well when you look at something like this and it's not a big
Yeah.
pot. So she looks bigger than she actually is.
Okay.
But yeah, do you see that? But the thing is that, this is not my claim to fame from D-Flask the way that you have it, That's definitely not what I'm trying to say. I just wanted to add a little bit to the conversation and show that we are actually, not exactly a failure, but I would love to do the whole D-Flask thing again, but I just don't dare. Not right now. Not a,
Yeah.
maybe if I ever have to move and all I've got is my Rapiculus lalias, because then one little four. I was going to say 4 feet, but no, that's not it. But a little heat mat of 40 centimeters by 40 centimeters with the flask. Oh goodness!
Yeah, I'm interested now to, once I start selling off some of the babies, because my grow space is now, I don't have room for anymore.
Right.
Um, I want to try, frags are my favorite genre of orchids, is the Phragmipedium. And I've seen a couple flasks for sale species that I can't find here. But I also know that they take years.
I mean, you're going next level, okay? Even the
Yeah.
ones you're growing now are going to take years, and now you're going to double that because you're going to get a
Yeah.
slow growing genus into your
Yeah.
nursery.
Yeah. But it's kind of a lot of fun because here now several of my Orchid Society members have gotten into the flasking. Um, one of them has got catasetums. Everyone wants the Millennium Magic Witchcraft and Black Pearl, and you can't find those here. So I found a Fred Clarkiara Dark Matter flask,
Okay.
and I've got that one going. And I had tried to buy the Fred Clarkiara Black Pearl, and someone had bought it out from me before I could get to it at this particular online nursery, and that was my friend Jane. So
Have you got dibs? Have you put in your
yes, we're doing
dibs?
a swap. Yeah, we're
Oh,
gonna do a
good.
swap.
Okay. Lucky that she got that. So at the Orchid Society, do people come with flasks or do they actually also bring plants?
So they normally just bring plants. So every once in a blue moon, like once a year, the Orchid Society that I belong to, Northern District's Orchid Society, will do a big import. And you can, with special permission, import plants, but that's cost prohibitive for just like me. But every now and again, the Orchid Society, particularly if there's an international orchid show anywhere within Australia, that's when they, hey, this
Right.
guy's coming, here's a list, and we can order these, and they'll come in through those. So that's sort of a special way we can get them. You'll have a few of the growers that will grow from flask and then put those up for sale. But mostly it's cuttings and divisions of their plants.
Right. So
Yeah.
how many members have you got in your Orchid Society? And with deflasking, is there a demand? Are you purchasing your seedlings to deflask according to what could possibly be the demand? Are you thinking along those lines or mainly along the lines of what you want?
Just what I want.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. My thought with the flasks was if I get at least one to live, then I have the plant that I want.
Right.
And here in Western Australia, the cost of the flask versus the cost of the adult plant is really about the same, particularly if you put your time and effort into growing it out. I've seen like Falbellina advertised for sale, near flowering size plant over east that I cannot import here for $250. And it's not a blooming size plant. So, if I paid $150 for a flask and I get one to live, I'm still saved a bit of money. So for me, it was sort of that logic, because particularly in Western Australia, being one of the quarantine states of Australia that has such rough quarantine laws on import, export, and things like we've discussed on our last talk. If you want to plant, that's the way you get it.
Well,
And
okay.
yeah.
Because I remember also seeing on Diana's Orchid. Sorry if I forgot that name. If I look at that, she went to an orchid show every once in a while, but that would be what you're talking about. You can't actually do that. You have to then go through the hoops and jump through all of those to get them, right?
Yeah.
It's not the same. But it would be an orchid show like that where your Orchid Society would be able to organize a specific order for all its members.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now there are some businesses that, like Easy Grow Orchids, our local business here, through their business agreements, and they pay the import costs and the quarantine fees and all of this. They actually do import some of their phragmipediums. Again, they're all in flasks from Peoria, Illinois, by where I'm from.
Wow.
So I'm getting plants that come from where I'm from flask here in WA. But so if you have a big business and you can afford to do mass import and pay all the shipping and all of the quarantining, and then have the skill to deal with the plants that are so battered and bruised from all of that before you put them up for sale, then that's good. I myself personally, as a personal grower, I can't afford to pay the shipping costs, B, quarantining costs, and then recovering them. Because even as I mentioned, for me to just import a plant from New South Wales over east into Western Australia, there's only a few growers that can do it. They have to have special clearance through the government. They have to treat the plants with special chemicals. They have to hold them in quarantine for X number of hours before they can ship them after they've been treated. And that's just coming from Australia into Australia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this whole flask thing, is it Is it building in momentum? Do you believe it is? Or is it something that, because it's the only way that, do you feel that there is gaining more popularity because things are not going to look any easier in the future?
I don't see it. You've got the one or two people that are interested in it. The rest of our Orchid Society members aren't interested in it. They're just interested in, what's coming up for sale from them. But I would say most of our society members would prefer plants, someone else to do the work.
Yeah, and the thing is also, like you say, it's also very discouraging to lose seedlings. I mean, let's just say if we if we want to define it as lucky, I was lucky to have lost mine within 2 months. I hadn't lost them after 3 years of labor. You know what I mean? Something can go horribly wrong, and after 3 years, you're seeing momentum and you're seeing things improving, and suddenly it's gone, and it's like, what?
Yeah, we'll broach that if we have to. Hopefully, we
No,
don't
no,
have
no.
to.
I'm only speaking from my experience. I'm not,
Yeah.
But you seem to have found the je ne sais quoi, I would say, because you certainly gave me a light bulb moment today, and maybe
Yeah.
that
Oh,
will
good.
help. No, really, seriously,
Yeah.
because I'm all about, differentiating humidity, airflow, blah, 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 blah. I'm all about the layman. And today, those pieces came together when I applied it to the subject of seedlings, and I hadn't thought of it that way before.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's where I can say the biggest difference is with the seedlings is those roots. Yeah. Particularly the seedling roots that they come with.
Mm-hmm.
Once they start growing new roots that are more used to things. But yeah, those seedling roots are. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I see it.
I've lost a train of thought. Oh boy, the sun's up now.
Okay.
5:30.
Okay. Well, do you need to go? Because I don't want to keep you any longer. If you want to, if you have obligations, honestly, I appreciate all the time that actually getting up like this.
No, I just noticed that it's lighter outside.
Okay.
Yeah, this is normal time that I'm starting to wake up because the sun's coming in the windows.
Right.
So yeah, I'm doing good.
Because I do have another question, just because you talk about space, and it's always a shame to lose out on opportunity when they pose themselves. You don't know, when's it going to come back. Sorry if you guys just heard a thud. I hit my mic. Let's just say some of your more mature plants, your mature orchids that don't need the lights. Can you rearrange them somewhere else where they still get lights and create some space that way? I'm sure you've considered all this already. You've been doing probably some Tetris in your mind. And
Yeah. Again, with my Dendrobium speciosum and the hybrids of those are going to go in the back garden as soon as we get the water wall done.
right.
And they're going to go on the water wall because we're building a gabion with the water blade
Yeah.
into a horse trough in the backyard. And since they're lithophytes, there's a rock wall with water running on it. They're going to go on. So that'll free up quite a bit of space for some of my larger oncidiums to go into their spots underneath, because I think my Sherry baby needs higher light. I've not got a bloom out of it. So that will free me up some space. And with the size of my house and the layout of it, I've only got one. I could add some more shelves if I could sneak them in when my husband's asleep. And put them in the hallway because we've got sort of a wide entry hall.
Mm-hmm.
And I could put them there, and I could actually, what I'm thinking on doing is doing that and then putting my really high light orchids there, moving all those really high lights from the living spaces, particularly the bedroom, into the hallway where when those come on, it's 7 a.m. in the morning, bam, it's if you're not
Right.
already awake from the sun, you are definitely awake from the lights. So that's a strong consideration. But again, I think my husband might kill me
Well,
if
we'll
put any
have to
more
keep an
shelves.
eye out for that then.
I put any more shelves in the house. But then I don't know, because he belly aches in such a fashion that I'm pretty sure he's just
Teasing.
carrying on and
Yes.
teasing. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Another question I had, do you ever apply any seaweed to your seedlings? Like say the moment they came out of the flask or during the process, anything with regards to that at all?
I had not with any of these because I was stupid and I didn't realize that the seaweed stuff we had in the garage could be used on my orchids because it said for the lawn.
Right.
And then
So
all
we
I
got to
kept
be
seeing,
careful what we chuck on our orchids if it's not specified. We got to be careful.
yeah, and at the time I wasn't involved with the orchid societies and really couldn't ask anyone locally because I was the only orchid person I knew, and I was
Mm-hmm.
getting everything off of YouTube or Google Scholar.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I was seeing at my big box store, and I'm like, where do these people get this at? And it was kind of cost prohibitive to Amazon it. So then I found that Bunnings had Strike Back for Orchids, which had it in it.
Right.
So I used that. And then found the Orchid Societies, and COVID was over. So then, yes, now you can actually attend the Orchid Society meetings, and come to find out that the brand Cesol, that's what they use here, which says for the green lawn, is what everyone uses, just lower dosage. So I've not gotten a seedling flask since I figured that out. But no, I hadn't been. They've just been getting regular fertilizer and
Well, there
CalMag.
you go. You see, it wasn't really necessary to get you to the point as to where you are now. I think that based on what you mentioned at the beginning, your yield, let's just say, it's 50%. That is pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we went from 100% attrition rate to 50%. I'll take that.
Absolutely. I mean, would you have expected that when you started your first deflasking? I mean, you were expecting one. You'd be happy because that's the one you wanted, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
I really was.
now you're being told, don't sell them yet because others wouldn't be able to handle it. I think that is pretty amazing. I mean, that would go down my back like, whew, thank you very
Yeah.
much, chef's
Yeah.
kiss.
Yeah. And I was shocked with that because, like I said, we've got very experienced growers, the people that have been growing 30, 40 years in these climates in this area. And to have Bruce, who's the president, say, no, not yet. Okay. Okay. But, needs must when a need arises and you have no other way, you figure it out.
Right. I think
Yeah.
it's fantastic.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm going to say, everybody, if you're interested in trying a flask, expect your first few to have fairly high attrition rates. Dote on them, look at them daily, see how they're doing, be prepared to make minor adjustments and learn on the way. And don't be hard on yourself if they all die, and maybe your next one they won't all die, but eventually you'll kind of figure it out. And then, yeah, I'm hoping one day that I get to smell the beautiful fragrance of my
I
phals.
think that would bring tears to my eyes, to be honest with you. I'm that kind of person. After, if I see something after, all these years, if one of my little ones that were little at the time were to make it and bloom, I honestly, I think I would break down, and not in hysterics, but, as in, it would definitely bring a tear to make my voice crack, Here's another thing as well. If as a beginner, deflasking, maybe even as on expert level, I would consider you as experienced in that regard. I would be an absolute beginner if I were to try it again. I would also advise to go with something that's a little bit more robust, something that
Yes.
can also handle a little bit more that something's more forgiving, be it a species or a hybrid that's more forgiving, because
Yeah.
I have in that pack that I bought back in the day, included is a Leopoldii cross. And
Mm.
I find Leopoldii to be, well, Tigrinas, but I'm sorry, speaking of name change from yesterday. Anyway, Leopoldii, I find them extremely slow, with concerns, even while I was full on lights supplementing with heat mats. I found them to be extremely slow,
Mhm.
and I wouldn't. So one of them is a little cross of that, and I wouldn't actually then go for it again out of the flask, because that can be arduous and it's torture, because you're
Yeah.
not seeing any progress at all. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to pull up another little picture, but you go ahead.
I would definitely say if you're going to do the flask, that do your research into it. I think another problem with my Bellina flask was the Bellina as a species is a bit more delicate than, say, the Stuartiana as a
Hmm.
species. And maybe for your first flask, steer clear of a species because they do have a bit more finickiness. They are a bit more finicky in needing their environmental things. But maybe go for a nice fowl hybrid. Or if you're going to go for a species, that I would say the fowls, Dortiana or Philippinensis, are quite hardy ones. That I would suggest those. Um, the terrestrial Acioclades I've had, again, I picked that one because I wanted the pretty leaves, and I did some research on it and found that it was also quite a hardy plant. And in Florida, the Acioclades maculata is actually an invasive orchid species. So quite hardy. So do your research. If you want to try one, go for one that you know is a hardy plant to begin with, and really get to know the plant, see what you have to offer. Obviously, if you're like me and you struggle with things, don't go with the cold growing Dracula. I'm not going to grow those out of flask. I'm not going to grow those from adult
Right.
plants. Yeah, that's a realization. I'm not going to grow a Masdevallia or a Restrepo.
Yeah.
Those just aren't going to grow in my climate. So don't even bother trying those as flasks. But just educate yourself on the plant and your environment. And in Australia they have this saying, roll with it. Get one, jump on the roller coaster, and check them daily, dote on them daily, and roll with it, and see what you can learn. It's
Right.
actually quite a bit of fun.
Well, here we are celebrating 1 year. Goodness
Yeah,
me. I should
yeah.
have the children's party applause. Yay! But here you see the Leopoldii that I got as a seedling. I still have it. I didn't take an updated picture because there's no need. It is still in that cup. I had to just, refresh, let's say, take off all the moss and just check the roots once since it's been with me. This picture was taken in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, to date, I have 2 leaves left. So
Mm.
all the teeny tiny leaves have dropped. It grew one new growth during my care, but it dropped a leaf in the process. And now I'm going back to when you were saying you were fertilizing like the big boys. And I have been tentative. I've been doing 100 parts per million on these. And okay, they are bigger orchids. It's a Cattleya. I think I've been starving my babies. Poor things. I hate to
Yeah, now I
admit,
wouldn't go with
but it
like the
sounds like it,
300 parts per million, but I do 120
right?
of fertilizer and maybe give it another 50 of CalMag.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not that familiar with Ceramis. I think it stays a lot wetter longer.
Well,
Um,
it's a replica of. It's supposed to be a replica of sphagnum moss, similar like that.
uh,
But yes, it does stay damp very, very long. Yeah, it
Maybe
is
mix
when.
in some of that small pumice that you've got with it. Maybe it's too wet as well.
Oops, I just finished that.
Yeah.
I just dumped everything into the pot to crock a Dendrobium hibiki.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
But
Um,
But I could do, I could actually in the spring or summer when I have the right temperatures, I could actually put in some grit, just some gravel, break it up a little bit.
Yeah, that might be
Hmm.
it. Yeah.
And give it a little bit more food. Chakula, as I call it. That's Swahili for food. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Hmm.
But yeah, I didn't need to take an updated picture. I thought maybe I should take a picture for today. I checked my 2018 records and I thought, nah, minus the seedling leaves and two larger leaves. That's it. It hasn't even grown beyond, let's say, the size of the cup as it is right now. So yeah.
Yeah,
But
and I'm not that familiar with the Cattleya leopoldii. I struggle with the Cattleyas for whatever reason.
interesting.
Yeah.
I would have thought not.
Oh, I think most of it was the ones I got were early on in my growing career, and they suffered from ignorance.
Okay.
And now I'm trying to rehabilitate them from the damage I caused them. I believe
Because
I have.
certainly in your climate, they can also go outside
Yeah.
eventually, at least until temperatures get get too cold, then you bring them
Mm.
back in. But I have a feeling that they would love to be somewhere around shaded by a giant speciosum against a rock wall.
Yeah. With luck, that'll get done this year.
Dripping with envy as I speak.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, right now it's still Viking burial ground in the backyard
yeah.
with the rocks. Yeah.
That's all right. As long as you don't find any dead bodies, your project can go ahead. You don't need to bring in any archaeologists to suss out what the bones are about. So
Yeah.
you're okay. You're within your own time frame. Does anybody have? I've been watching the chat. Does anybody have any questions for Sandy? I was just seeing that Sandy had left. For Julie's son. Anybody like? I mean, you've been watching the chat as well, and it's been pretty question free, I would say. You
Yeah.
did a great job, Julie.
Thank you,
No
Robert.
questions. Pretty thorough there. Anything else you might want to show us? Is there something that you have tucked away that
Um,
maybe we sort of skipped because we went off on a tangent?
I can't really get to them because Dylan's
Okay,
asleep in the
right.
bedroom.
All right.
Yeah.
No worries. We'll see them in
No.
the video. Because
Yeah.
what you are very, very welcome to use any part of this video or this stream if you want. I can, once it's processed, I can send you the link, and if you want to
Okay.
cut it and edit it to fit your channel, basically you're welcome then to use it. And then if
Yeah.
you want to add on to your video as per whatever you edit out or include your other little bits and pieces, then feel free, that you're very welcome to do that. But know that
Now,
the stream will probably take 6 hours to process. You've got time.
the only thing
No
I
rush.
even have here is I made a trade for this one on
Okay.
one of my babies with a gal who lives 4 hours away from me in a town called Walpole.
Uh-huh.
And she doesn't have a YouTube channel, but she follows Dustin with Here But Not on his,
Okay.
she emails him. And we swapped, and I got, this is a Cornu Survey.
Hmm.
And that's not Chateladay, but it's Vinny Wan Ku.
Okay.
And this one is, I don't know when she deflasked it, but I've had it about a year too.
Okay.
So we,
That is so cool.
yeah.
So how do you
So
spell
there's
that? Okay.
VINI, and then next word is WAN-KOO.
Vinny Winku?
Mm-hmm.
It looks like there aren't many great searches for your search. You got yourself something special there?
Yeah, I don't know. This is just the
Oh, Vinny Wanku, here we go. And it's from a, oh, no, oh, yes, I've got some images. So this is from Tucker's Nurseries. Well, she's a glossy one, isn't she now? Let me just
I
get all
haven't
the
looked at it.
let me just get all the cookies out of the way, peeps. Let me hold on. I'll get this up on the screen for you because she looks like a chateladay. She does. She's a little bit more star-shaped. Let me get this up without messing it up. There we go. This is the page from Tucker's Orchids, in case anybody was wondering what she looks like. Her corner survey says one thing, so the variety is Vinny Wanku. And this is where we go back to orchid names. Why? What a cool name. Why is it called that? But yeah, she has the same characteristics with those stout spikes. Very broad, very wide spikes from where the blooms come. Oh, goody. You're going to have yourself some smiley faces. Honestly,
Hopefully.
at first glance, I couldn't be able to tell you the difference between my chateladay as opposed to this one. I don't know where the difference is. Maybe a little bit more star-shaped in the bloom, but they've got the hard hat, we've got the eyes, and we've got that smile.
Yeah.
Cool. That is awesome. So that's your first swap. What did you give away for that?
That was a swap with Stuartiana.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And she's in your Orchid Society.
No, she's in a regional town about 4.5 hours east of here.
Okay.
And the town has a population of about, I'm going to say 300 people. And she lives on the last street of the town.
Okay.
And
Right.
it's one of those that if
The
you sneeze, you
outskirts.
drive right through it without
Yes.
realizing it.
Wow.
And so it was an interesting zip out to meet her, and get to see that sort of area of Western Australia, which is where they have a lot of the milk cows. I went past the Brown's Dairy where they make most of the milk and the butter that you buy here. And that was quite interesting. And to get out sort of way into those regional towns. And it was kind of interesting because we met and then we walked behind her house to the pub and we had a beer. Then I grabbed my plants and then went home.
How cool. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. That sounds very, very much reminiscent of some of the things that we had to do in Africa to get our goods or the things we needed when somebody had it, and then we brought what they needed, and then we met up sometimes halfway. Yeah.
But poor thing, she's so far out there that she can't, there's no orchid societies out there for her.
Well, that is a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Oh, well, you got yourself a goodie there. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Right. Well, I'm going to call it unless somebody has a question. If you'd like to hang on, Julie, just for a second, unless you have something more that you want to share. I am not trying to rush you, but I believe we've pretty much covered everything.
I think we have. Thank you.
No, thank you. Goodness me, I'm telling you, I'm not sure if somebody said to me, set the alarm on a Saturday morning at 3:30 a.m. to be on a live an hour later. I would say, no, I'll do a video and you can include it. I'll send you the link. No, you're very much appreciated. So if you don't mind just to hold on 1 second, I want to say thank you so much for everybody that joined. Thank you to anybody that watched the replay, and I appreciate it if you've watched it to the end. And on your way out, if you don't mind, if you haven't already, would you give this video a thumbs up? Because, Julie did get up for us to be able to do this in a reasonable time for our time zone. So that would be amazing. And watch out, maybe in a couple of months, Julie will have something similar from this video on her channel, and she'll show us some more things. Her link I put into the chat. If you're not subscribed to Julie yet, please go ahead and do so. I think the alternative perspective of Australian orchid growing is something that we can all learn from. Anywho, hand hearts to all of you. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope to see you in the next one, Brea. I appreciate you a lot, as I do everybody else. Thank you, Wingman. Thank you, Orchid Ninja Chris, Sun, and fabulous friend Fernanda. Obrigado. If you're still here, have a wonderful rest of your day. One condition, though, please, that you stay safe. Take care. Bye.